Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from IPR with the latest on the tropics, and we are just a few hours away from August here in the eastern United States. And of course, as you know, August is a very active month for hurricanes as well as September. Not quite as active as September, but one can almost argue that August is about quality, September is about quantity. That's not always the case. We had a 150-mile-an-hour hurricane hit Miami September 16th, 1926. But we also had a Category 4 hurricane hit Florida August 13th, 2004. So August and September, everybody's at risk, from Texas all the way up the eastern seaboard, from hurricanes. Taking a look out there right now, we have two systems. We had an invest down here in the central Atlantic, and it was discontinued. However, a tropical wave that exited Africa a few days ago merged with it, and it's looking better than it has pretty much since the inception here. And it is looking as though, and by the way, Inception was not to promote the new movie out that everybody's talking about. I simply just used that phrase. But regardless, it is looking as though this system here in the central Atlantic will soon become an invest again, and quite possibly there's a 40% chance right now slowly develop as it moves on up generally towards the northern Lesser Antilles. From there it's too far out, but right now a track towards the Bahamas and the southeastern United States is definitely looking possible. Another wave here in the Caribbean not showing much signs of life, although it is possible it tries to develop right before coming into Central America. Better shot, I think, in the Eastern Pacific. But our system here in the Central Atlantic clearly is getting organized. You can see it bursting there, and right about in here is where the problem area is, part of the intertropical convergence zone, which of course is very active for this time of year, as it should be. However, as this system develops and moves on towards the west-northwest, there really doesn't appear to be anything stopping it from strengthening. Strengthening into a hurricane, or even a strong hurricane, seems possible. You can see right now 5-10 knots of wind shear. As it moves along, it should have favorable conditions. In fact, if we look at the shear tendencies, you can see that better, where you see the blues and blacks. These are where shear values are lowest, and that's near where we're trying to get a depression forming, and it should carry a good environment with it up to the Bahamas as far as we know. From what it looks like based on the models, it doesn't show the system dissipating or anything like that. It continues it all the way up in that general direction. Now, if you look at the AVN imagery, the colorized, clearly those deep grays here showing up, indicative of a system trying to get better organized. And again, right now the track would probably be like that. Of course, it could be a bit further to the north, especially if it strengthens faster. Remember, Bill last year developed in this area, became a Cat 4 hurricane, moved on out. It's a different setup, but it didn't help that it became a Category 4 to pull it more north. The weaker it stays, the more likely it's going to take a southern track like that. Most likely, I think it will strengthen. It appears to be trying to do so. A hurricane of Category 2 strength, say right about in this area in a few days, very, very possible based on the model guidance. Now, taking a look at the no-gaps model, you can see the no-gaps there does develop the system and doesn't show it up too strong, but definitely our system right there heading towards the Windward Islands here, maybe a little to the north, the Leeward Islands. With the ridging above it, it would likely have a pattern to at least start to move a little bit further to the north, with this trophiness coming in here, sliding the ridge off to the east. However, it's just too early to talk about any land impacts beyond the Lesser Antilles. I think it's safe to say the Lesser Antilles do have to watch this system. Here's the GFS, and you can see the GFS makes it a strong storm. Look at that tiny little buzzsaw here moving generally poleward, getting pulled to the north, but that's the end of the loop. You think it's getting pulled north, it's getting pulled out to sea. We're not going to have to deal with it. However, what's actually happening is there's a rebuilding ridge, and that's going to push this system west based on this run. And if we look at the longer ranges, look at here, look what happens. The system ends up hitting Florida, hitting the Gulf Coast. It ends up over South Texas. It ends up over South Texas within a 2-week period, and look at a second hurricane, much larger and stronger, coming. Now this one would likely have a better opportunity to turn based on this, But still, you got high pressure here, high pressure here. Either it turns or it gets tracked. Now again, that system is not one we'd have to deal with yet. But the one here that it shows striking Florida, Louisiana, and Texas, yeah, that's a triple whammy there, and that's from the system we're watching in the Atlantic right now. And that's why it's a little bit scary to think that, we could have a system here making landfall in Florida within a week and a half. Based on what we see out there now, you're looking and you're going, you know what? This could be the beginnings of something, and that's exactly what it's looking like. Now, as far as the second system that we see on the model guidance coming up behind it, that's likely this wave or a wave behind it, but you can see this one moving off now looking very impressive. And there's really nothing stopping them. It's August. Look at this, August 1st. We're in August now. Now's chow time. I mean, it's time to get down to business. If you live in these areas, to start your hurricane plans and overlook them for evacuations, where you would go, and get those emergency supply kits ready. And it's all about preparedness. You can go to IPR365.com. We got some great official links there to help you prepare, and take a look outside. Take a look outside and see, is there loose trees, something, especially if you live in the islands. If you live in Puerto Rico, yeah, this guy right here. That if you live in Puerto Rico, I'd be watching it very carefully, as well as the Bahamas. And the Bahamas, you guys are at risk because there's nothing east of you except Africa. It's all water there, and when you get a hurricane coming, especially a strong hurricane, as the models, when this was an invest, were showing a major hurricane, some as strong as a Category 4. Just because they're not running on it right now doesn't mean that if this becomes a new invest, that's not likely the same environment it will be in. So my odds are that if this becomes an invest again later tonight or tomorrow, which it likely will, the models are going to show this easily getting up 80, 90 knots, which is a solid Category 1-2 hurricane within a 4 or 5 day period. And as we've noted, it is August, and you know what that means. That means the waters get warm. And take a look at this. These are the SSTs. Right now, it's over a good 28, 29 Celsius. Look at this, 30 as you get closer towards land. Waters are only going to get warmer, the shear should be low, and if this develops, we're going to have a situation here near the Northern Islands in about 4 or 5 days. And by that time, we're going to have a situation in the Bahamas and in Florida if these model guidance projections hold true. Now again, it's still a good ways out there, so don't get too hyped up yet, even though I sound a little bit crazy about this one, but there's something about them when they're bursting like this in August, and the conditions look favorable for a pattern like that dreaded westward turn under a ridge. Think about it. Francis, Category 3, turns west under the ridge almost to 5. Andrew, tropical storm, turns west under a ridge 2 days later, Category 5. Ike goes from a Cat 2 to a Cat 4 in no time, hits Cuba, slams them. It's that type of pattern that is very dangerous. That is what the Great Miami Hurricane was. Okay, which also hit the Gulf Coast, you guys. Don't forget that. So I just want to throw that out there, that just to kind of get you into gear, that we're in August. This is a very active season. We already had 2 storms. I mean, if this was 2004, we had 15 storms that year. We're already 2 ahead of that. So let's just see what happens as far as the rest of the hurricane season. But I spent almost 10 minutes rambling on about this, but this is something we need to watch, and it should get you guys into gear, especially in the Northern Islands here. St. Croix, St. Martin, St. Bartholomew, St. Eustatius, any of you guys here in the Northern Islands, San Juan, start making those hurricane plans in case a hurricane hits your area, because once this does get cranking, we may not have a whole lot of time before all of a sudden we have a strengthening hurricane on your doorstep. And that's the only reason why I'm being kind of liberal about preparing for it, and preparing for it for the entire season, not just for this system, but for what else is to come. So that'll do it. I'll be back with frequent updates the next several days, as I'll be doing what you're doing, waiting and seeing on this system, and seeing if these models showing a hurricane end up panning out. I'm Mike Nasa from IPR. I'll see you next time.